Good afternoon, everyone. This is Teresa Kemker. I'm chair of the Heritage Preservation Commission, and welcome everyone to our meeting for December 14th, 2020. The St. Paul Heritage Preservation Commission reviews applications for projects at heritage sites or within the heritage districts in the city. And the commission also serves as an advisory body to the mayor and the city council on municipal heritage preservation matters for the city of St. Paul. All of the documentation that's going to be used in this meeting this evening is available on the commission website at www.stpaul.gov/HPC, and no new documentation will be discussed or recognized in this meeting. During the meeting, we'd ask you to please mute your microphones except when you are recognized by the chair to speak. After being recognized by the chair, commissioners and staff will need to state their name before speaking, and everyone else needs to state their name and address before speaking. All deliberation and voting will be done via a roll call conducted by the chair, and staff will be monitoring microphones and muting participants as needed. So, with that, I will take a call of the commissioners. So let me know if you're here, please. Commissioner George.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Bazat.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Douglas. I'll come back to her. I understand Commissioner Lupke is not here. Commissioner McDonald. Commissioner Nelson.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Peroka.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Wagner.
Here.
Thank you. And I'm here. Let me come back to, let's see, Commissioner Douglas. And Commissioner McDonald. Okay, well, we have a quorum, so we'll go ahead and get started. Maybe those two other commissioners will join us. So, our first order of business is the adoption of the agenda, and I see we have an amended agenda removing the review of the CLG review for 470 Western Avenue. I saw that somebody had just raised their hand there. Was there somebody who wanted to?
Move approval of the agenda. Revised agenda.
Well, that's what I was working on, yeah. Okay. Okay, does anybody want to move for adoption of the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you.
Commissioner Peroka.
Commissioner Bazat, I second the motion.
Thank you. Any opposed to that motion? If not, the amended agenda is adopted. Are there any conflicts of interest this evening? Hearing none. Then we'll move to the minutes for our meeting on November 30th, 2020. And I assume you've all had a chance to take a look at those. Do I hear a motion to adopt the minutes from November 30th?
Commissioner Bazat, so moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Bazat. And second for that?
Commissioner George, so moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Any opposition to that motion? Hearing none, the minutes for November 30th of 2020 are approved. So we'll move on to our first item on our public hearing today, and that is the 542 Portland Avenue new construction project. And,
sorry, Commissioner Kemker?
Yes.
This is George Gauze, staff. It looks like Commissioner McDonald has joined us.
Okay, is that right, Commissioner McDonald? Are you on the line?
I think you might be, Stuart, you might want to mute and unmute again.
Oh, I see Commissioner Douglas is with us.
Hi.
Hi, thank you. And Commissioner McDonald, are you on the line?
It looks like he may be having some microphone troubles.
Okay, well, we'll come back to him then. Okay, so yeah, our first item on our public hearing is the 542 Portland Avenue new construction. And the staff report is from Ms. Suhan Eggers, I believe.
Yes, hello everyone. So for 542 Portland, this item has been remanded for rehearing by Councilmember Tao due to technical difficulties. Since this is a rehearing, there have not been any changes to the application since you all saw it last. As a reminder, this is the 3-unit townhouse at the rear yard parcel of the Dutch colonial style house at 542 Portland. So just a bit of background, this was at the HPC for a pre-application on February 10th, and then the HPC review was on October 5th, and the HPC voted 5-0 in favor. An appeal from Gar Hargens and Missy Staples Thompson was received on October 19th, and that was taken to City Council. And at City Council was where the Councilmember Tao asked that the item be remanded for rehearing, which is why we're here today. And testimony that has been received for this project, the applicant included 17 letters of support with their original submittal. At the October 5th meeting, the HPC received a testimony letter from John Soulars and Dan Chouinard, and heard testimony from Nick Marcucci. And staff have forwarded all testimony for today's meeting to commissioners, as well as posted testimony to the website. The testimony letters were from Gar Hargens, Gary and Elizabeth Curry, John Soulars and Dan Chouinard, Nick Marcucci and Ann Schroeder, and Peter Carlson. And in addition, staff also shared previous emails regarding the meeting arranged between the architect and the neighbors, as well as emails that staff was copied on regarding the BZA variances, but weren't specifically addressed to the HPC. I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission has regarding this application. And I know that the applicant is also on the line when time comes, but if there's any lingering questions about this project, I'm happy to answer.
This is
The
Commissioner
commissioners
Nelson.
have any? Go ahead, Commissioner Nelson.
I had 2 questions. Well, we've heard from a lot of people. One person or persons that we haven't heard from are the owners of 535 Summit. So question 1 is, do we know whether those people got notice of all this?
I'm sorry, your question was what? Do we know?
Did the owners of 535 Summit, who have remained silent, get notice of these proceedings?
This is Carlos.
Yes,
Can
so
I answer?
notice. Oh.
No, go ahead, Addison. Go ahead, Addison.
Yep.
Yep.
So notice was posted for the meeting. I am not whatever I have received, whatever staff has received has been forwarded to the HPC. That's all I really have. Did you have a second question, Commissioner Nelson?
Well, there are 2 more. What does posted mean? You mean published in Finance and Commerce, which to my way of thinking is legal notice, but not effective notice to anybody? What do you mean posted?
We post the agendas and the public hearings in the legal ledger, and then they're sent out according to executive order on the early notification system to folks who want the notice. And
Well, I
it's
think
also
that-
put on the website.
So I take that to mean we don't know whether the owners of 535 Summit have actual knowledge of this proceeding, right?
Well, we do our notice according to ordinance of what we're required to do.
Okay, my next question is, I asked this last time and I've forgotten the answer. That fence across the back of the side lot there, you know, it has come up in some of the opposition letters. Do we have any jurisdiction over a fence?
We get to review where a fence is located. Yes.
That's if it's proposed for a new construction or to replace a fence?
Correct.
Yes, in either situation, we would review the fence.
Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.
Commissioner Bazat, did you have a question for staff? Yeah. Commissioner Bazat, I see you have your hand up there. Did you have a question for staff?
Yes, I apologize. I was muted. I have lost the shared screen, and what we're seeing are the participants' cameras. So the shared screen view isn't available right now, which is the agenda and other matters from staff. Just another technological hiccup.
Let me work on it.
Any other questions for staff relating to the application for 54542 Portland? Commissioner Bazat? Is that a new question or is that just, okay.
I forgot to lower my hand. I apologize, but it's difficult to find the taskbar.
I understand. Okay, so I'm not hearing any further questions. So are the
That's
applicants
Commissioner
here?
Wagner.
Oh,
This is
Commissioner
Commissioner
Wagner,
Wagner.
yes, go ahead.
Hi, sorry. I'm using my phone to call in, so the signal to raise one's hand is not something apparently I have access to.
I understand.
And I didn't want to interrupt others who might have been queued ahead of me. So I understood through some of the concerns that were raised through letters that there might be a question about easement rights associated with this development, and maybe somewhere in the packet there was some information addressing that specifically, but I wanted to see if either staff knows something or if the city attorney has made comments to the HPC on how we're supposed to interpret our reading in purview over any issues related to the easement rights and the claim, at least that was made in one of the letters, that there was not permission given and there was no allowing of building or using portions of the adjacent site to the east.
So the HPC does not address easements. That is outside of the HPC's purview, similar to how we do not review variances for projects. While there are many components to making a project feasible, the HPC's purview is just within the the ordinances outlined for the Heritage Preservation Commission.
Right, but I think the question I had was there was an issue raised that because the easements weren't granted, that therefore this wasn't subject to HPC review. That was what was put forward, and I wanted to find out if that question went through the city attorney's office and whether they made comment or any kind of review on that.
This is George Gau's staff. City Attorney's Office has not looked at the easement issue for this property. We haven't had
And
a question of.
Am I to take that to mean that then therefore as a commissioner we should assume that we have full jurisdiction to make a ruling on this then?
On the application or an easement?
On the application, right? Yes.
Correct. Yes.
Any other questions for staff on this application? Hearing none, are the applicants here to present their application?
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi,
So
hello, good
please
afternoon.
remember to state your name and address, and you will have a total of 15 minutes to present your application to the commission. Okay,
Thank you very much. My name is Carlos Perez, and I'm the architect of record of the project. I live on 178 Robbie Street West in St. Paul, Minnesota. And first, I just wanted to thank the commissioners and the chair, also the staff for all the help that we've received through the process of making this application. It's been a lengthy process, not because of the process in itself, but the circumstances with 2020, as we all know, it's been a different year, by putting in mild terms. Before I jump to the presentation, I'd like to add a couple of comments to the questions that were raised by the commissioners. In regard to the property to the southeast, the south and the southeast, we try to reach. This is not it's not based on the process of the HPC, but separately on our own account, we try to reach the neighbor. Now the neighbors live. The owner of the property lives in France, and we were able to reach him, but we did try. On top of the notification that the HPC does on its own. In regard to the fence to the south of the property, we're actually removing that fence as part of the project. It's an all cedar fence that is in pretty bad shape, and then we're proposing to put a new cast iron fence that is part of the package. So that has been reviewed as part of this application, and is included in the package. Now, there was a question about the easement. My understanding is that actually this has been brought up to the attorney of the city, and it was discussed during the BCA application. That was one of the questions that came up. Of course, that can be a follow-up with the BCA, but that was discussed, and this is actually common practice. We've run into that in many projects in the city where you have an easement, and when you have an easement, that's what they are for. So the owner of half of the easement cannot stop the other owner from being able to access their property to do improvements or a project like the one that we're discussing. So I just wanted to bring that up, but of course, the staff is more than welcome to follow with the BCA and with the city attorney to confirm that information. And then that's in response to the commissioner's questions. Going back to the application and to the project, we've been working with the HPC staff now since sometime back in fall of 2019. Like I say, the project got a little bit extended because of the circumstances this year. But we actually presented several iterations of the project. We started with a carriage house approach to the project. But pretty early in the project, we found out that that was not the response that this site required due to the circumstances and the layout of the site. I don't know if George or Allison can show the site plan, maybe a good time to show that so the commissioners, although I'm pretty sure that everybody's aware, but the property is a very elongated property with with the rear of the property having very little visibility from Portland Avenue. Most of the visibility and where the site is located is into Summit Avenue, as you can see in the site plan. And after, like I said, reviewing several times, several iterations, and discussing with the staff what was the best approach, we proposed a structure that was more in alignment with the architecture of Summit Avenue, just to follow the rhythm and the design criteria of the Summit property. Now, the property to the south, and this is a question that has come in previous meetings, and it may have been a question that came during the BCA, or maybe the meetings with the owners to the south. The property to the south is maximized on the number of structures that can be built on that property. So no structure can be built in front of our property. That was a question that also came about during the BCA meeting because they were, the question came, well, what if they put a fence on the side? Can they build something? And the answer is they cannot build something on the side. The owner could put a fence on that side, but still our structure will be taller than the maximum high allowed fence on the side of our property. Currently, where we're placing the location of the building is occupied by an existing parking lot with gravel, deteriorated chain link fence, and the building and the project is going to represent a big improvement on the existing conditions. We have used the existing architecture as a repository of the architectural elements, in big part to maintain the scale with the colonial roof of the architecture. Again, we've been coordinated for a lengthy period of time with the staff just to make sure, and we've made many modifications along that process just to make sure that we were in compliance with the guidelines. If you have any particular question about the guidelines, I'll be happy to answer any questions. In regard to the design, when we met with the HPC on our preliminary meeting, there was a discussion. We presented two options. One which included a porch because we thought that was a better sample of architecture along the summit, especially with the architecture and the buildings that are on both sides, and the preliminary commission recommended that the project the porch was incorporated. And the reason why I bring that that up is because the require of the installation of the port require 3 variances. And that was part of the package as well. It's included in the explanation of the package. Those 3 variances is having the rear porch on the setback for the porch, the coverage of the building on site, and then having the entry on the rear of the building, which again, what we're trying to accomplish is a building that face Summit Avenue, not Portland, because it's not going to the visibility from Portland is very minimal. Like Allison was saying, the BCA met and approve the variances unanimously with the conditions. The HPC approved the project as well, and also the condition that we included a garage car lift, which is part of the package of the project as well, because since one of the variances is requiring additional parking. In regard to the process, again, we went through the preliminary site plan approval. We applied for final plan review for, I think it was, my memory doesn't fail me, September 21st. But then at that point, we heard concern from the neighbors, and we postponed the meeting just to allow the neighbors to express their concerns. And we have 2 meetings with them. My understanding is that the meeting minutes for those have been included with your package. And in those meetings, there was a range of comments that we received. Some of them, actually, we made minor modifications to the project after we listened to the comments that we heard. And then some of the comments were completely rethinking and redo of the project. So those we disregarded because we disagree with those comments. We met also with numerous neighbors on site, and we got a great deal of support. We were pretty happy to hear that with the neighbors that we met, that they like the project, and they were willing to write letters of recommendations, which we included with the package, and you have. Also, we met with the Summit University District number 8, and we had a good meeting. They like the project, and they also provided a letter of recommendation in favor of approving the project. I guess in general, just to reiterate that we've been working with HPC now for almost a year, and we have accommodated all the comments and design guidance that we have received from the staff, just to make this project a success, and a project that fits well within the Summit Avenue. So that's all I have. So if you have any comments or questions, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. Does the do the commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Douglas.
Well, thank you. So this question is for Architect Perez. So I'm Commissioner Douglas, and my background is architectural design and space planning. And I just have a question about the design of the townhouses. And I've been kind of poring over your plans, your construction documents, and in the master bedrooms, I still, are these the most recent construction documents that were submitted to the commissioners?
Well, I don't know where you're looking at, but we haven't made any new revisions since we submitted, so I assume that the answer is yes, that you have the latest plans.
Okay, so I don't know if you're looking at the plans, but I'm looking in the master bedrooms and in all 3 townhouses. I don't know why, but I cannot find the closets. I see the closet for the second bedroom, the one that faces the front, but
yes.
But I don't see the closets, and it's just been puzzling me. It's probably there, but I just don't see it. Can you point it out to me?
So originally we had installed built-in closets, but after reviewing as the project evolved, and we had to actually increase the width of the party wall or the radial wall between the units, we had to remove those walk-in closets, and the closets are just going to be freestanding furniture. The code doesn't require to have a built-in closet in a room. It's kind of like
I thought it did.
yeah, no, it's a little bit of a myth, but you're not required to have a built-in closet.
I see. So
thank you for the question.
Okay, yeah. Well, thank you for you. It's just, I actually love your design. They're very interesting. But yeah, that was just a question. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant from the commissioners?
Commissioner Wagner,
Yes, Commissioner Wagner.
I would like to understand if the applicant knows the history, why the landlocked lot came to be. What's the property division history there? Why did we have a landlocked piece that needed to be joined up, and who did it originally belong to, and just a little bit of background on that I think would be helpful.
Okay. I don't know if the contractor is online. I know that for the development of this project, we had to actually combine this site was divided into 2 different lots, and I can actually really quick look in the Ramsey webpage and see if they were purchased at the same time. I don't know if they were purchased at the same time. But that's my guess. When the lot was purchased by the current owner was purchased at the same time, but they were 2 different parcels, and that shows in our site plan. If you have the package in front of you, you can see that. But whether or not they were purchased at the same time, I think they were, but I can confirm that in a second.
Did they at any time belong to either of the properties on Summit?
I can answer that. I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
And does staff know the answer to that?
This is Allison Suhan Eggers. No, we have not. We have not done a deep dive into the property ownership history of that parcel.
I'm just curious because I mean, if it was never belonging to any property along Portland Avenue and was originally a parcel associated with Summit, that would be interesting to know that landscape history, or if it was just always landlocked, why that was. Because I think it has some unusual bearing on some of the claims that that somehow this structure should either look like a Summit Avenue structure but is set too far back, or B, should look like a carriage house, in which case actually it's too far forward towards Summit. So it's sort of positioned in a little bit of a limbo that makes, frankly, either case a little bit suspect in my mind. It's rather not A or B, it's actually C, and to sort of have some history associated with that might give some bearing on commissioners' sort of historic thinking about the parcels along Summit, of which there's a large variety as you go from east to west. It's not a somehow contiguous, uninterrupted single setback, set of facades along Summit, nor property widths, nor styles. So what I'm trying to do is to bring some sort of basis to understanding one argument versus another, and at the moment I don't have any way to gauge that unless there was some known history to the property.
Sure. Thanks. Commissioner Bazat, I have a partial answer to the question.
Yes, Commissioner Bazan.
Commissioner Wagner, I did some research in atlases and plat maps because I had the same question. I was scratching my head about it. And in both the 1916, I gotta figure it, 1916 Curtis and 1928 Hopkins maps is shown a very large structure at the rear of 542 Portland that was likely some sort of garage or carriage house that's sited approximately where this project is sited. So at least historically, there was a structure there, and it showed that it was within the lot, you know, lot 8, block 22, that is the 542 Portland parcel. So at some point, there was a pretty big honking thing back there. Not immediately upon, actually it shows up right about the same time the dwelling shows up. So they were likely built around the same time, and it was there by 1916.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicants from the commissioners? Going once. Okay. So Allison, you listed the, you've already given us all the, there wasn't any written testimony or comments other than that, what that was provided to the commissioners, is that right?
Correct. Everything that, every piece of written testimony that was submitted has already been forwarded to the commissioners as well as posted on the HPC website.
Okay, thank you. And you identified all of the people who submitted contributions correctly?
Yes, I can restate that if you'd like. And some of them may be on the call and wish to say anything additional to the commission. But we received testimony letters from Gar Hargens, Gary and Elizabeth Curry, John Soulars and Dan Chouinard, Nick Marcucci and Nick Marcucci and Ann Schroeder, and then Peter Carlson.
Thank you. So we'll now accept comments from the public on this application. And just to let you know what the rules and procedures we'll be using for that testimony is that speakers should state their name and address for the record before beginning their presentation. All presentations must be confined to the topics of this public hearing, and that is the new construction at 542 Portland Avenue. Each speaker may speak only once, and speakers have a maximum of 5 minutes to address the commission. And I just want to reiterate that if you've provided written comments, you're certainly welcome to speak if you have additional comments to make to the commission today. But you know, we were provided and have had an opportunity to read all of your written submissions, so there's no need to repeat what's already been stated in those written submissions. So with that, is there anyone who wishes to speak from the public on this application?
Sure, I can start.
Go ahead, Gar.
Yeah, this is Gar Hargens. Since I'm missing our application, I can lead off. I'm glad to know we have more than 2 minutes. That's what we were told initially, but I'll be respectful of time here. I am.
Sorry, Mr. Hargens, I know you have written submission, but could you just state your address for the record, please?
Sure, just getting to that. Yeah, 548 Portland Avenue. So we're 2 doors down from the subject property, and Cass Gilbert designed Portland Terrace. Before I go any further, I want to be sure. I think George did reply to this, so I'm a little bit mystified. Our attorney, Eric Gallant, submitted to you and should be in your packet and addressed the easement question, which we think is a rather important one. And the other piece that I know, George, you got and said you were including was the letter from Gary and Elizabeth Curry, who own half that driveway. I want to be sure that the commissioners see those documents.
We did get those 2 documents.
Yeah. All right. Just double checking. Let's see. I know many of you,
But I'll just say I'm a registered architect with 52 years in the field. Worked on numerous homes in the neighborhood of Summit Avenue. I was a member of the HPC for 9 years and commissioner or was chair for 3. And I'm proud to say my administration were the ones that started the design review hearings as a way to get informal discussions going between neighborhood groups and neighbors and commissioners. So I obviously care very much about the commission's role in protecting the integrity of St. Paul's unique and valued historic resources. And I hope you've had a chance. I know we've sent you a lot of stuff, and my formal review of the guidelines for this property is, believe, included in your packet. So I'll just be quick here. We're not proposing, we're not opposed to developing this site. It's interesting to hear Commissioner Bazat's mention of a large carriage house. I've looked at our site historic maps, and Barb's right. There are instances of rather large carriage house buildings up and down our block. But the size of this project is just overwhelming, at least to what's there and anything that remains. So Development 101 tells us to work with neighbors from the start. And obviously that didn't happen here, but should start now. I urge you to send this project back to receive serious neighborhood input. The hastily called conference calls with neighbors were just that and just touched the surface. And were only initiated a year after the project began, as Carlos said, in the fall of 2019. I was very informative to listen to the tape of your meeting on February 10th. And I think Carlos actually brought you a beginning of an alternative scheme when he presented the simple facade treatment on Summit. The Summit false facade on this proposal is perhaps the most offensive part of it. Second is its overpowering size, way beyond the scale of any similar sited building anywhere in the neighborhood. So my plea is to please send this back to be properly massaged and worked on. There are other options here.
Thank you, Mr. Hargens. Are there other members of the public who wish to address this application?
My name is Bob Roscoe, and I would like to provide a little bit of testimony. My address is 1401 East River Parkway, Minneapolis, and I'm very familiar with historic preservation in St. Paul. I've did a lot of work for Historic St. Paul, Carol Carey's organization, and for some others as well. I actually won a design award for saving a building on, I think the address is 800 East 3rd Street, that HPC had signed off for demolition but I found a developer that really made it quite a handsome property. But just to go on my comments here, the significant, I agree with Mr. Hargens that this really would be wise and beneficial, given the importance of Summit Avenue in the whole district, for this to go back to design and look at some of the options that need to be done. What I've listed here, I agree that the massing and height are twice those of other nearby neighborhood buildings, and they really don't relate to them. The 3 townhouses are out of place in the rear yard of a primary residence and are non-conforming to immediate structures. The proposed houses have improper setbacks and are out of alignment with adjacent Summit Avenue structures and nearby structures on the avenue. Summit Avenue possesses a highly important pattern for the Hill District, and these proposed structures will unduly disrupt the highly iconic and unique architectural character. Now, although design guidelines call for encouraging architecture and quality design, this proposal is significantly unsatisfactory Summit Avenue is perhaps a place in St. Paul that has gained more recognition nationwide than anything else in terms of historic resources. So the area around the street deserves extra care and protection. That's my comments.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak to this application?
Yes, this is Tom Darling. My address is 445 Summit Avenue, and I am a member of the Board of Directors of the Summit Avenue Residential Preservation Association, or SARPA. And SARPA opposes the approval of this triplex. And because the proposed triplex can readily be seen from Summit Avenue, there's been a lot of analysis revolving around it as if it were on Summit, but it's not. But even if you think of it as a Summit Avenue residence, it just doesn't meet the HPC guidelines. It's a long distance back from Summit. It's a distance more appropriate for a carriage house, not a large residence. And given how far back from Summit, its size and its scale, the massing, the height, they're all too large. And in order to maintain the appropriate size, scale, massing, and height, we believe the structure should be designed with dimensions as if it were a carriage house. Now, for these reasons and other reasons, SARPA opposes the approval of the project. And I'll note that we did file a position statement in connection with the earlier appeal, but I just didn't realize I needed to put something more in. But you have the gist of it, so thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak to this application?
Well, I'll speak to it. This is Peter Carlson.
Okay.
I'm at 482 Dayton Avenue in St. Paul. And I would like to say I've been part of the historic area for 40 years. And this house, or this project, it seems to me, is started based on a false premise and a false idea that it was part of Summit Avenue when it's not. And that has contorted the whole design of the project in unfortunate ways, that it leads the HPC to sort of certify that the back door is the front door, which it is not. It is a 250-foot sort of pathway from its address on Portland Avenue to get to the quote-unquote front door, which is the back door. And if you accept that the garage doors are essentially going to be used as the front door of all of the townhouses, then what you have is a very suburban pattern, not a historic sort of thing. So I would say it's out of context for the pattern of the neighborhood. And it's unfortunate that we would basically foster these falsehoods, these false pretend sort of things, thinking that it sort of dresses up the historic area. It does not. It looks out of place, and it will be out of place. And I think it will be unfortunate, difficult to use, and not very pleasant places to live. But that's my opinion about the inside. So I'll let it go with that. The HPC shouldn't accept basic false premises as the basis for design. I also agree with the comments by the others about the size and so forth.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson. Anybody else who wishes to speak to this application?
Yes. My name is Missy Staples Thompson. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I live at 548 Portland Avenue, and my professional career has been in affordable housing development, finance, and community engagement. As a housing advocate, I fully understand and support our city's focus on increasing density and providing more affordable housing, but I challenge the notion that this 3-unit oversized townhouse project presents a solution in our already dense neighborhood full of housing choices. On our block alone, there are single-family homes, townhomes, condos, apartments, and a large recovery house. There are renters and owners, something the developer would have known if he'd taken the time to meet with the neighbors for input. There is consensus in our neighborhood that a smaller, respectfully designed building would be welcomed. I appreciate the letter of support from the Summit University Planning Council, but want to note that the developer contacted them late in the game after realizing he'd neglected to do any neighborhood outreach in over 10 months of working on this project with HPC staff. And the numerous letters of support attached to the application appear to be hastily cleaned within a week of the first public hearing in October, showing nearby residents an elevation of the project totally out of context with the site, and having the majority of comments do not indicate substantive conversation or involvement by the developer. This lack of outreach sets an unacceptable precedent for any developer who plans to work in a neighborhood, especially when the developer insinuates that this building provides affordable housing and more housing choice. The much touted garage car elevators not only add to the cost of the project, making it less affordable than comparable properties on the block, but also adds additional feet to its height. The project represents nothing more than a developer who's choosing to overreach by overbuilding a site without taking the time to understand the neighborhood and its place in the city. I urge you to send him back to the drawing board to seriously work with the neighborhood and develop something that respects heritage and preservation. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Okay, hearing none. And I'm not seeing any hands up, so we will close the public hearing portion of this application. And I will ask for a motion and a second from commissioners on this application. I see somebody with their hand up, but I can't see who it is, so.
Commissioner Bazat.
Yes, Commissioner Bazat.
I move to approve the application for construction of the 3-unit structure at 540 Portland Avenue as per the findings of fact and conditions in the draft resolution, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report, and other information which I will refer to the resolution.
Hello.
Thank you, Commissioner Bazat. Do we have a
Hello,
second for
excuse
that?
me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry,
Can you hear me?
we've had some trouble unmuting the phone to get into the speaking portion of the comments portion here. Is a comment still allowable?
Yeah, I've been trying to get heard.
Well, yes, I guess. Well, if it was a technical issue, we'll reopen the public hearing.
Can you hear me now?
It was indeed a technical issue.
Okay. Well, state your name and address for the record, please. And
All right.
And you have 5 minutes for your comments.
Thank you, and I apologize for the delay in unmuting here. My name is Dan Chenard. I live at 550 Portland Avenue, and I simply want to address the quality of the letters of support that were gathered preceding our October 5th meeting, which I would remind you is more than 10 months into the planning process of this development. And we hear at each hearing, we have heard that there were 17 letters of support that were presented at that October 5th meeting, and 1 letter of opposition, which came from myself and from John Soulars. And it appears that after a neighborhood meeting on September 26th, Saturday afternoon, that the developer or an associate went out and talked to neighbors that same day. And it was a single page form. At the top of the page was a nice clean drawing of the proposed Summit Avenue rear elevation of the building, with all of the adjacent structures removed from the drawing, except for the two neighboring Summit Avenue homes. There was room for name, address, email, phone, and then a space for comments, and at the bottom of the single page, signature and date. And I want to point out that all of these letters of support are amazingly brief for a project of this complexity. 10 out of the 17 are fewer than a dozen words. A sampling is, I think it would be wonderful with the neighborhood, 9 words. I think it would be an improvement, 7 words. Design looks great, 3 words. In all 17 of these, there was only one that came from our block of Portland Avenue, one sole letter, 11 words worth of endorsement. But mostly these letters came from a 1.5 mile long stretch of Summit Avenue, from Farrington to St. Albans. There were letters from 3/4 of a mile away, 8 words, looks completely lovely and appropriate for the space. Looks like a good fit, 5 words. And a mile away from Grand and Milton, there were 2 letters. All of this suggests to me that we ought not to be treating all of letters of support and of objection as equals. There were letters in the letters of support that said, nice job, I agree, and good luck, which calls into question whether or not people who were responding to this were given any contextual information that allowed them to make any sort of an informed response and recommendation. So my assertion here then, summing up, is that we need to acknowledge that these letters of support are not substantial letters by people who've taken the time to examine the proposal in any detail. These are 1- and 2-line statements that clearly arise out of a quick encounter with the developer and a clipboard and a pretty drawing. And that's the extent of my comment. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes.
This is Missy Thompson again. I'm sorry to break in, but I will tell you we've received text from people who are unable to testify. They are having technical difficulties. And so far we've received from 3 people. We've heard from Larry Millette. We've heard from Emilia Mettenbrink. And we've heard from Kathy Mays. All of them are having difficulty in accessing the phone lines.
Me too. I don't know if you can hear me. I'm having that problem.
This is Larry Millette. Can you hear me now?
Here we go.
Hello.
Larry.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to add, I'm sorry I wasn't able to get through before, but
I'm
I
sorry,
just wanted
who
to add.
is this speak? Who is this
I'm
speaking?
sorry, this is Larry Millette, Millett, at 283 Goodrich Avenue, St. Paul. And I have been looking at this proposal for some time, and I would express my concern about it as well. I really think it's a hybrid that doesn't fit either as a Summit Avenue house or as a carriage house, and I hardly support the idea of going back to the drawing boards on this. I just think it would set a precedent that would be very unfortunate for the avenue. And I think and I second the comments of the other speakers who were concerned about this. So I thank you for your time. I'm sorry I wasn't able to get in sooner.
Can you guys hear me now? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear somebody, yes.
This is Eric Gallis. Sorry, I've been
I'm sorry,
on
what
since
was
the
the name?
beginning. My name is Eric Gallis. I'm an attorney at Stinson LLP, and I represent Gar Hargens and Missy Thompson at 548 Portland, and Gary Curry and Elizabeth Curry at 536 Portland, the house next door to the subject property. And I myself, I'm at 1472 Raymond, so I live in St. Paul also. I'm an attorney, obviously, formerly an architect. I don't know, I haven't heard you say that you received my earlier message, or if you've read the appeal, but I know you did discuss my objection on behalf of the Currys with respect to the use of that easement. And I'll say
we did, Mr. Gallant, we did receive both those items. We did receive your letter of today, and we did receive a copy of the BZA appeal.
Good, thank you. So with respect to your earlier discussion about it, it's very much in your purview. Section 7303 requires that the applicant be a person having an ownership, leasehold, or contingent interest in the heritage preservation site. It's not in your purview, and I'm surprised no one's asked the city attorney about this, but it's not, I'm not asking you to interpret the easement, I'm just asking you to recognize that the developer does not own 4 feet of the property he intends to build on, and he intends to convert it from an 8-foot wide driveway serving the 3 current residents of 540 and the 1 current resident of 536 to something that's going to accept 6 more cars without any increase in the size of that driveway. And to the extent that is an issue for the HPC, I'd say that it very much relates to the character of the neighborhood, to be having that much traffic coming up and down a little skinny driveway, running past the living room and on second floor the bedrooms of the Currys. You're doubling the traffic, and more to the point that they don't own that property and they don't have the right to build on it. So that's my argument about jurisdiction. I think you don't have jurisdiction, and you really ought to send the developer back to get permission from the neighbors to build on their property before you give them permission to do so. My second objection relates to just your authority, if you do have the authority to address the historic standards. I think you failed that authority at this point. I haven't heard any discussion among the commissioners today about the placement of this. I've heard some objections to it, but you know, the basic principle, and this is quoting from section 7465, the basic principle for construction in the historic hill district is to maintain the district scale and quality of design. The last paragraph of that section says new construction should be compatible with size, scale, massing, height, rhythm, setback, color, material, building element, site design, and character of surrounding structures. The proposal in size, scale, massing, height, rhythm, color, material, and building elements intentionally mimics Summit Avenue homes. And Mr. Carlson, who spoke before me, said it very well. It's a fake Summit Avenue house. He's actually put a front porch on a building that is set in the back of a lot on Summit Avenue, or it's supposed to be taken for a house on the back of a lot of Summit Avenue. If it's going to be treated as a Summit Avenue structure at all, it ought to be treated as a carriage house with something as much simpler design, much smaller design. Instead, you've got something that is the size and character of a very large house on Summit Avenue, set in a backyard where, if anything, a carriage house should be located. And I'll say, you know, those are subjective standards for construction. You're allowing a violation of a very objective, specific standard, and that's in subsection F of 7465. The setbacks can't vary from standard setbacks on the lot by more than 5%. And this proposal is substantially more than 5% off of the standard setback for a house, and it's substantially more than 5% off of the setback for a carriage house. It's out of scale and it's out of place on the site, and you shouldn't have to go any further than that. You've violated what I'd say is sort of the prime directive for your own ordinance by allowing this to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glad.
Madam Chair, again, this is Missy Thompson. I've received 4 more notices from Nick Marcucci, Dan Raw, Jason Polonius, and Emilia Mettenbrink, Kathy Mays are all waiting to speak and they can't get on.
They can't get on at all, or I'm not understanding exactly. I mean, we've never had
They're
this
not
problem
able
before.
They're not able to access the line. This is coming in from many people who want to speak as part of the public hearing, have used the process of calling in, punching in the numbers with the pound sign, and are unable to access the phone. I'm not sure if George is able to help with this.
I see. This is George Gause. I don't see anyone waiting I don't see anyone having any issues with anything. They need to hang up and
I'll
try
say,
again.
this is Eric again.
Hi.
You know, my experience was I was on the phone from the beginning, but every time you asked if someone else wanted to speak, I would say so, and you couldn't hear me. I had to hang up and call back, and Missy had to ask for you to let me in.
Hi, this is John Soulars, who lives at 550 Portland Avenue, and what I've noticed is there's some automatic muting system that happens where there's a soft voice that says to unmute yourself, push *6. So I'm wondering if that is what's happening to people, that they have not heard that kind of whispered voice that tells people they've been muted, and to use the *6.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Is there,
This is
yes,
Nick
is there somebody
Marcucci.
who wants? Yes.
Hello, this is Nick Marcucci at 552 Portland. The *6 does work. I would like to make comments.
Okay,
Commissioner,
go ahead, Mr. Pucci.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Kim Kerr, I have to break in. This is George Cause of staff. Comments really ought to be, if you've already sent in letters or multiple letters on many cases, then your comments need to be different than those letters. This isn't another opportunity. The commission has read all of those letters. They've seen all those letters. So it needs to be that there is some new information here to be said. So, and we do have a motion on the table. So this is most irregular that we're doing this so people can be heard.
Chair?
Excuse me, I'm sorry to butt in again, but this is a public hearing, and we were denied a public hearing because of the technicalities of the virtual platform 6 weeks ago. And so I believe that part of this is allowing residents of the neighborhood to be able to speak to this. And I'm sorry if that makes this a little bit awkward, but a public hearing is a public hearing.
Chair.
And this is George Goss from staff, and you have submitted letters to that effect to the commission. That is your public testimony, and the commission has taken time to read those letters. So this is really for different communication to the commission, people who haven't submitted or people who could not submit something. Thank you.
Chair, excuse me, we've got a lot of voices going. This is Commissioner Bazat. I will temporarily withdraw my motion in order to allow people who have not already presented testimony, namely people who've sent letters to present their position, which have, as staff and the chair has noted, have had an opportunity over quite a period of time to read those and digest comments. But should there be people who have been unable to get in due to the not knowing about the *6 issue and who have not sent letters regarding this, I would be willing to temporarily withdraw a motion in order to allow them to speak if that works for the process.
Thank you, Commissioner Bazat, and I will accept additional comments from the public that are not repetitive of information already provided to the commission and that are not repetitive of written statements.
George.
I'm sorry, there was somebody there and I could barely hear you.
Excuse me, am I audible?
Yes, you are
Yes?
audible. Yes.
This is Jason Patalonis, and I live at 506 Portland Avenue, and also am the vice president of the Ramsey Hill Association. And I have not submitted anything formally, so this is my opportunity to chime in. And I really just want to support all of the work and the arguments on the opposition side to this. I am not an architect, but I can certainly appreciate scale and all of those features. I've lived in this neighborhood for 30 years and also am not opposed to development. I'm opposed to development that doesn't make sense. If you go to buy a shoe that you love, but it doesn't fit you, you don't buy it. It's as simple as that. So Personally, I wanted to leave that comment, and then as an association, we don't take sides in terms of where we support a project or we don't, but we very much are, we really want to hold the city accountable to your process. And, the original comment of reaching out to the owners of 535 Summit, who as residents of France, they're probably not going to be looking at city websites to know that there's something going on. And just the fact that the neighborhood was not involved, I think we probably could have alleviated a lot of this activity that's gone on in the last 10 or 12 months if the developer had just reached out and said, this is something that we're proposing to do. As a neighborhood, we're fortunate enough to have many architects, both retired and active, and I think we could have avoided a lot of this. And so I want to just reiterate Gar and Peter's request that we go back to the drawing board and the developer work with the neighborhood, work with the association to come up with a solution that is beneficial to both parties. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Padalonis. Are there
This
other
is Kathy
new...
Mays. I have one more comment.
I'm sorry, okay, you've not commented before, right? Today?
No, this is Kathy Mays. No, and I'm 501 Portland, but I'm making a comment on behalf of the Ramsey Hill Association and our board of directors. And thank you, Jason, for your comments. Been trying to get back on since I was automatically muted. Our membership really just cares about the process. We don't want any other neighborhood to go through this. We believe in historic preservation. We would not have purchased a home here without knowing that there were some guardrails, and you provide that for us. You know what? You waited on a roof that we were trying to put on for many, many months, and it just makes me pause that this project that has so many variances is getting pushed through so quickly. I know you think a year or 2 years is not quick, but when you look at the size of this project, you're putting a round peg in a square hole, and it's not working. You make us work to do projects, and we're thankful for that. I ask that you look deeply at 542 Portland and make a decision to go back to the drawing board, go back to square A, and make some good decisions that are neighborhood based.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Dan Roth at 544 Portland. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, we can hear you.
Great. I won't repeat any of the other comments that have already been stated. I agree with all of them. I think there's a couple other things to possibly consider here. One, we have a parking issue in this neighborhood, and this is going to make it even harder. But two, I think more importantly is I think we need to think ahead a few steps here. You could certainly, grant permission to the developer to make this, to build this property facing Summit, even though it's on Portland. But I do think that at some point, whether it's the current owner or a future owner of the property on Summit Avenue, they may want to build on that someday. And I'm pretty sure their house, whatever they build, is going to face Summit Avenue. So now you'll have two houses facing Summit Avenue, one behind another. And I think it would look like a horrible zoning blunder for probably the next 100 to 200 years. Summit Avenue it's the jewel of St. Paul. It's this prized avenue of great architectural creation. And we'll have something very, very suburban looking at us on Summit for the next 100 to 200 years. And I think it would just look very bad for St. Paul. It's very permanent. And I think it really compromises whoever would be developing on Summit. It puts them in a very awkward position as well. I think that's all I really have to say, but I just wanted to add that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roth.
Hello?
Hello?
Hello? This is Nick Marcucci.
Yes.
I live at 552 Portland Avenue. I am also an architect with 40 years experience. I just wanted to make a comment. I've sent in photographs that this property and this development will barely be seen from Summit Avenue due to all the trees on the vacant lot to the south of the property. Please look at my photographs. Thank you.
We do have your photographs, Mr. Marcucci. Thank you. Was there anybody else who was not able to get in because of difficulties with muting that wishes to add a comment?
Hello?
If not, now we're going to close the public
Hello?
portion. Yes,
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
All right, this is Emilia Mettenbrink. I live at 544 Portland, which is directly next door to the proposed development. I would just like to reiterate how upset the neighbors on this particular block are when we all hear about how many letters of approval there were for this proposed development, knowing that none of them came from the people who would be most affected, who are truly the neighbors of this property. It just goes to the non-neighborhood aspect of what is happening right now. The direct neighbors had no idea that this was going on until very late in the process and have been continually not listened to or given proper voice. These are people who will have to live with the construction aspect of this, people who will have to live with the parking aspect of this, and people who will have to live with the increased traffic of this more than anyone else. And none of us approve, and that should be taken very seriously as you proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Once again, is there anybody else who was not able to get in because of issues with the muting problem that would like to offer additional testimony today on this application? Okay, hearing none, I'm now again closing the public hearing on this application. And Commissioner Bazat, I'll go back to you for a motion on this application.
Thank you. I'm sorry,
Yes.
I'm dealing with, uh-oh, there's another voice. There's somebody coming in. I'm rising to move, well, not literally, to approve the application for construction of a 3-unit structure at 540 Portland Avenue as per the findings of fact and conditions in the draft resolution, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
Do I have a second for that motion?
This is Commissioner George, I second.
Thank you, Commissioner George. And I will open the floor to Commissioner deliberation on that motion. Commissioner Bazat.
I just want to say that there's no question that this is a difficult decision and it's a difficult situation, but it's our purview, as was stated by the attorney earlier, has nothing to do with the zoning. Clearly, We emotionally are happy to take that into consideration, but our charge is to look at the design and all of the aspects that have been mentioned, namely massing, height, size, materials, among all of the other considerations required to approve or deny an application. We cannot make decisions based on potential zoning considerations. From reading maps and plats, it seems that even things like that 8-foot driveway are a little bit off, and the property records show that it's somewhere between 10 and 15 feet wide. So there are just a lot of fine points, but our decision needs to be made based on the application itself. We do know we've had numerous conversations. There was a pre-application meeting. There was the original public hearing that apparently was problematic due to technical and meeting overlap considerations. And radical changes were made to the original proposal based on the pre-application hearing, to which commissioners contributed suggestions and recommendations for making changes to the original design and the original proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bazat. Commissioner Douglas, did you have something to add?
Just from what I've been hearing from the residents, the people in the neighborhood, it sounds like their main concern is construction and construction noise and parking. I don't know if parking is from the planned parking or whether they're going to be inconvenience for parking. And then also, I believe one of the attorneys said that the land is not owned. They didn't purchase it from the actual owners. And I'm not clear on that. I don't understand that. But that's just kind of my observations. It doesn't sound like, there are several architects who have given information, but just from my personal design perspective, I mean, it looks like it fits perfectly into the neighborhood. I mean, it's not a single family home, no, but it's a carriage home from the the turn of the century. It just, yeah. So I'm not understanding that part, but it just seems like the main reasons that a lot of people are complaining who actually live within the vicinity or next door to or across the street, it's because basically they just don't want the construction to happen because that is an inconvenience. I mean, I live close to the light rail. We didn't want the light rail to happen because of the construction. It took 5 years to construct it. It is an annoyance, but that's just part of construction. And this is the 21st century. I don't want to go on and on, but new property does happen. So I mean, that's just kind of my observations. So thank you.
Thank you. And I think the issue on the property that they were raising is, and the ownership is not the entire property certainly, but that portion of the driveway is an easement between 540 and 540, a joint easement between the two of them. And I think the argument is that that they can't build on that property without an agreement of the easement applying to that other structure there, which I think is, Commissioner Bazat said is right, is that how that easement, I mean, even if we approve this project and the zoning department says, no, you don't have an easement on here, or there's not enough, whatever, it's still not going to get built. So they still need to get a building permit, and that they'll have to meet all those conditions in order to do that. So I agree, that's not really an issue we need to resolve here tonight.
I see. Okay.
Commissioner Bazat, did you have additional comments? Commissioner Bazat?
I just want to address Commissioner Douglas's question. In our resolutions, we always state that further permits and approvals may be required. This approval signifies review and issuance based on the heritage preservation regulations and guidelines. No other city, state, or federal review and approval should be assumed or implied. So we have to, as much as it's difficult to comprehend, I'm not saying that we're putting blinders on, but we can't make a decision based on whether or not a driveway easement will be approved and whether or not, what we're looking at is the design, which has been evolving over the course of the last year, year and a half, and other issues related solely to the height, massing, volume, proportions, scale, materials. So just to say that this, a lot of these issues, unfortunately, with this particular case have been blended. And it's a very tough one to try